Princess Mary stood at the grand observation window of the Imperial Palace's reception hall, her silver skin reflecting the light of 3 moons. Below her, another massive ship landed on a crystal platform, bringing yet another suitor from a distant corner of the galaxy. "Your Highness," announced the royal herald, his voice echoing through the hall. "The ambassador from the Crystal Dominion approaches." Mary turned away from the window, her expression carefully neutral. This marked the 57th suitor this month alone. Her father, Emperor Stone, sat on his floating throne nearby, watching her with concerned eyes. The doors slid open, revealing a tall being made entirely of living crystal. Light danced through his transparent form, creating rainbow patterns on the polished floor. Behind him, servants carried boxes of precious metals and rare elements. "Princess Mary," the crystal being's voice chimed like bells. "I bring gifts from the farthest reaches of the Crystal Dominion." He waved his hand, and the boxes opened. Inside, impossible structures folded and unfolded themselves, defying physics in beautiful but coldly calculated patterns. Mary watched as mathematical perfection played out before her. The display was impressive, certainly. Advanced, undoubtedly. But something was missing. The same thing that had been missing from all 56 previous presentations. "We offer you control of 10,000 star systems," the Crystal Ambassador continued. "Our civilization has mastered the art of stellar engineering. We can show you how to shape entire galaxies." Emperor Stone leaned forward slightly. The offer was exceptional, even by their standards. The Crystal Dominion was one of the oldest civilizations in the known universe. Mary stepped closer to the dancing light display. "Thank you for your generous offer," she said, using the same words she had repeated so many times before. "I will consider it carefully." The crystal being's light dimmed slightly. They all knew what that meant. No one had ever returned from being considered carefully. After the ambassador left, Emperor Stone floated his throne closer to his daughter. "Mary," he said softly, "you must choose someone. The Empire needs alliances." "Father, they're all the same," Mary replied, turning back to her window. "They bring their technology, their wealth, their power. But there's she struggled to find the right word, no life in any of it. The Crystal Dominion is over 50 million years old," her father reminded her. "Their technological advancement is unmatched." "That's exactly the problem," Mary said. "They'd forgotten what it means to grow, to discover, to face challenges. Everything they create is perfect, but it has no soul." A soft chime interrupted their conversation. Another ship was approaching. This one belonged to the Mind Collective, a civilization that had uploaded their consciousness into a vast computer network spanning thousands of worlds. Mary sighed. She already knew what they would offer: perfect digital immortality, unlimited virtual worlds, the combined knowledge of trillion minds. And like all the others, it would feel empty. "How many more?" she asked her father. "There are representatives from 233 major civilizations still waiting for an audience," Emperor Stone replied, "including the quantum hierarchy and the Time Weavers." Mary pressed her forehead against the cool window. Outside, ships of all sizes and designs filled the space around their station. Each one carried beings of immense power and knowledge. Each one hoped to forge an alliance with the Starborn Empire through marriage. The Empire's location at the galaxy's central trade routes made it a valuable prize. Their natural ability to navigate hyperspace lanes made them essential for faster-than-light travel. Every advanced civilization wanted that power. As she watched, a small ship caught her attention. It was tiny compared to the others, and its design was almost laughably simple. It moved differently, too. Not with the precise efficiency of advanced AI, or the reality-bending powers of elder races, but with something that looked almost like personality. "Father," she said, pointing at the small vessel, "what kind of ship is that?" Emperor Stone's eyes narrowed as he accessed the station's database. "Ah," he said dismissively, "just a human merchant vessel. They're requesting emergency docking. Probably got lost again." They're quite new to space travel. Mary couldn't explain why, but she kept watching the small ship as it approached the station. Something about it felt different. Something about it felt real. The human ship limped toward the docking bay, its hull bearing scorch marks and impact dents. Through the observation window, Mary watched as emergency repair drones swarmed around it, their scanners trying to make sense of its primitive but surprisingly robust construction. Requesting immediate docking clearance, the ship's communication echoed through the control room where Mary had wandered. "We've sustained damage defending a civilian transport from raiders." The docking controller, a being of pure energy named Bright, flickered with confusion. "Your vessel's technology is barely spaceworthy by our standards. How did you survive a raider attack?" "Good old-fashioned luck and duct tape," came the response, followed by a sound Mary had rarely heard in the Imperial Palace: genuine laughter. "Plus, raiders don't expect a cargo ship to fight back." Element of surprise. Mary moved closer to the control panel, intrigued. The ship's captain spoke without the usual formality or fear that most showed toward Imperial officials. Instead, there was a warmth in his voice, even through the static of the damaged communication system. "Permission granted," Bright announced, still sounding bewildered. "Proceed to Bay 7. The landing wasn't graceful. The human ship, which Mary could now see was named Star Wanderer, shuddered as it touched down. Steam hissed from damaged cooling vents, and one of its landing struts buckled slightly. Yet somehow it remained upright. 3 figures emerged from the ship, wearing what looked like patchwork environmental suits. They stopped to help a maintenance bot that had gotten tangled in some cables, working together to free it before even checking their own ship's damage. "Fascinating," Mary whispered. "Most advanced species would have simply deactivated the bot or let their eye handle it. These humans used their hands, showing surprising gentleness for beings from a primitive world." The ship's captain removed his helmet, revealing a face weathered by years of space travel. His eyes crinkled at the corners as he smiled at the maintenance bot, which now hovered happily around him. "Your vessel requires extensive repairs," Bright informed them. "Our systems are having difficulty interfacing with your unusual technology." "No problem," the captain replied, patting his ship's hull. "We can handle the repairs ourselves. Just need a safe place to work and maybe permission to trade for some basic materials." Mary watched as the humans began their work. Unlike the crystal beings or the mind collective, who would have simply materialized new parts or rewritten reality to fix problems, these humans used tools. They climbed over their ship, discussing problems, trying solutions, occasionally failing, but always trying again. "Princess," one of her guards approached, "this area is beneath your station. These are merely primitive traders." But Mary couldn't look away. The humans had set up a simple repair operation, and to her amazement, several station workers had gathered around, curious about their methods. One of the crew was explaining how they had modified their shields to deflect the raiders' weapons, using diagrams drawn in the dust on the floor. "Look at that," she said, pointing to where the captain was showing a young station technician how to patch a hull breach using their materials. "They're teaching, sharing knowledge freely." "Inefficient," the guard replied. "Our automated systems could repair that damage in seconds." "Yes," Mary agreed, "but would we learn anything from watching machines do their work?" These humans, they understand their technology. They don't just use it, they know it, feel it, improve it. As if to prove her point, the ship's engines suddenly hummed to life, but with a slightly different tone than before. The captain grinned, explaining to his audience how they had modified the power flow to work better with their damaged systems. "Sometimes," he was saying, "you have to work with what you've got and make it better than it was before." Mary smiled. In all her years of watching advanced civilizations showcase their achievements, she had never seen anyone take such joy in simply making things work. Without meaning to, these humans had shown her something that all the elder races had forgotten: the pleasure of solving problems with your own hands and mind. "I want to meet them," she declared, already moving toward the elevator. Her guard started to protest, but Mary had made up her mind. After endless parades of perfect, emotionless displays, she had finally found something real. The repair bay buzzed with unusual activity as Captain Tom worked alongside his small crew. He had stripped down to his basic work clothes, hands covered in grease as he rewired a damaged power coupling. Around him, several of the station's maintenance workers watched with undisguised curiosity. "You see," Tom explained, holding up a twisted piece of metal. "Sometimes the fancy solution isn't the best solution. This coupling was designed for smooth power transfer, but by adding these grooves..." He pulled out a small cutting tool and began modifying the part. Mary watched from behind a cargo container, having slipped away from her guards. She had changed into simple worker's clothes, her silver skin dimmed to a common gray. The disguise wasn't perfect, but the humans wouldn't know what a princess of the Starborn Empire should look like anyway. "That's not in any repair manual I've ever seen," one of the station workers commented, leaning in closer. Tom laughed, a sound that still surprised Mary with its warmth. "Best solutions rarely are. The manual tells you how things are supposed to work. Experience teaches you how to make them work when they're not supposed to." A small emergency light began flashing in the station's loading area. The automated systems were offline for maintenance, and the station workers looked uncertain about what to do. Without hesitation, Tom set down his tools. "Need a hand with that?" he asked, already walking toward the problem. His crew smoothly took over his repair work, showing the same helpful attitude. Mary followed at a distance as Tom reached the loading area. A cargo lift had jammed, trapping several containers of sensitive materials. The station's workers were arguing about proper protocols while waiting for the automated systems to come back online. "Mind if I take a look?" Tom asked, approaching the control panel. The workers stepped aside, some looking skeptical, others curious. Instead of immediately trying to fix it, Tom asked questions. What was it doing when it stopped? Any unusual sounds? When was the last maintenance check? He listened carefully to each answer, building a picture of the problem. Mary found herself moving closer, drawn by his methodical approach. It was so different from the instant solutions she was used to seeing. There was thought behind every action, a deep understanding gained from years of hands-on experience. "Ah," Tom said finally, pointing to a wear pattern on the lift's guide rails. "There's your problem. The weight distribution is off because these rails are worn unevenly. We can compensate for it manually." He directed the workers to adjust their cargo placement, teaching as he worked. "See how the load sits now? That's putting less stress on the worn sections. It's not a permanent fix, but it'll work until your automated systems can handle a proper repair." The lift hummed back to life, moving smoothly despite its worn components. The station workers looked impressed, and one of them offered Tom a handful of repair credits as payment. Tom waved them away. "Keep them. Just remember the trick with the weight distribution. Might save you some trouble next time." As he turned to head back to his ship, he nearly bumped into Mary. Up close, she could see the laugh lines around his eyes, the small scars on his hands that told stories of lessons learned the hard way. "Sorry about that," he said, then noticed her interest in the lift. "First time seeing a manual repair." Mary nodded, finding herself oddly nervous. "I've seen many repairs, but never like this. You teach while you work." "Best way to learn," Tom replied with a smile. "Everything's a chance to help someone understand something new. Besides," he gestured at his patched-up ship, "we humans are still pretty new to all this. We learn by sharing what we know and admitting what we don't, even from those you consider less advanced." Mary asked carefully. Tom's laugh surprised her again. "Especially from them. You never know where a good idea might come from. Speaking of which," he pointed at her disguise with a knowing look. "That's some interesting color changing you've got there, starting to show through a bit." Mary glanced down to see her natural silver tone beginning to shine through the gray. She looked up, expecting to see the usual fear or excessive respect she got when people recognized her. Instead, Tom just winked. "Don't worry," he said quietly. "Your secret's safe. Though I suspect you didn't come down here just to watch us fix a cargo lift." "Would you show me your ship?" Mary asked, her silver skin now fully visible. She had expected Tom to bow or begin apologizing once he recognized her, but he simply nodded as if giving a tour to a princess was the most natural thing in the world. "Mind the step," Tom said as they entered the Star Wanderer. "We keep meaning to fix that loose panel, but something more important always comes up." The ship's interior surprised Mary. Unlike the sterile perfection of advanced vessels, every surface told a story. The walls were covered with photographs and hand-drawn pictures. Small plants grew in recycled containers, their leaves adding splashes of green to the metal corridors. "What are these?" Mary asked, pointing to a collection of small objects on a shelf. "Souvenirs," Tom replied, picking up a rough crystal. "This is from our first mining operation. Nearly got ourselves stranded trying to extract it. And this," he held up what looked like a piece of carved wood, "was a gift from the first alien species we ever traded with. They thought we were crazy for wanting something so simple instead of their advanced technology." Mary touched the wooden carving gently. "Why did you want it?" "Because it was made by hand," Tom explained. "Someone spent time creating it, putting their thoughts and feelings into every cut. That makes it more valuable than any machine-made thing." They moved into what appeared to be a common area. Music played softly, not the mathematically perfect harmonies of advanced races, but something with subtle imperfections that made it feel alive. A crew member named Rose was teaching two station workers a card game, their laughter echoing through the ship. "This is how we live out here," Tom said, gesturing to the scene. "We work hard, but we make time for the things that make life worth living. Music, games, stories." Stories. Mary's eyes lit up. Her own people had long since abandoned traditional storytelling in favor of direct knowledge transfer. Tom grinned and pulled out a worn book, an actual physical book. "Earth Classics. Want to hear one?" For the next hour, Mary sat entranced as Tom read about ancient Earth sailors braving vast oceans, about people overcoming impossible odds, about the human spirit of exploration. The stories weren't perfect or precise, like the history she had studied, but they carried something more important: hope, courage, and the endless desire to push beyond known boundaries. "We've got digital versions of these," Tom admitted, closing the book. "But there's something special about holding the real thing, feeling the pages, smelling the paper." "Everything here feels real," Mary said softly. "In my world, we create perfection. But you create." She struggled to find the right word. "Life," Tom suggested. "Yeah, we humans are pretty good at making things messy and interesting." Speaking of which, he reached into a cabinet and pulled out a small container. "Ever tried coffee?" Mary watched in fascination as Tom went through the ritual of preparing the drink. The rich aroma filled the air as he explained how humans had discovered and cultivated the beans, how different cultures prepared it differently, how it had fueled countless late-night repair sessions and early morning adventures. "It won't hurt you," he assured her, offering a cup. "We check your species biochemistry in the station's database." Mary took a careful sip and her eyes widened. The taste was complex, imperfect, and absolutely wonderful. It wasn't just a drink. It was centuries of human history and culture in a cup. A sudden commotion outside the ship made them both look up. Royal guards were visible through the viewport, their armor gleaming as they searched the docking bay. "Looks like your absence has been noticed," Tom said, but his voice held no judgment. "You should probably go." Mary stood reluctantly, still holding the coffee cup. "I thank you for showing me all this. Come back tomorrow," Tom suggested. "I've got more stories to share, and I believe Rose is planning to teach the station crew something called poker." For the first time in years, Mary felt herself truly smile. In this simple human ship, surrounded by imperfect but beautiful things, she had found something she never knew she was missing: As she left to face her worried guards, she already knew she would return. Drawn by the irresistible appeal of humanity's wonderful imperfections, the news spread through the imperial palace like wildfire. Princess Mary, heir to the Starborn Empire, had been spending time with humans. Primitive humans who had barely mastered faster-than-light travel. The grand reception hall, usually filled with the quiet hum of diplomatic conversations, now buzzed with outraged whispers. Emperor Stone sat on his throne, facing the assembled representatives of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. The crystal ambassador's form pulsed with barely contained anger, sending rainbow fragments dancing across the walls. "This is an insult to all advanced species," the ambassador's voice chimed harshly. "The princess has rejected our offerings, only to consort with beings who still use physical tools for repairs." Mary stood beside her father's throne, her silver skin gleaming defiantly. "I have broken no laws," she stated firmly. "The humans are registered traders in our space." A representative from the Mind Collective stepped forward, their holographic form flickering with disapproval. "We offer the combined knowledge of 1,000,000,000,000 minds, yet you choose to learn card games from creatures who haven't even mastered dimensional engineering. The Empire's position in the galaxy is built on respect," the Time Weaver's delegate added, their form shifting between past and future states. "How can we maintain trade agreements with a civilization that values primitive methods over advanced technology?" Emperor Stone raised his hand for silence. "My daughter's interests are concerning, but surely this reaction is excessive." The crystal ambassador's form darkened. "We are withdrawing our trade proposals. The Crystal Dominion cannot be associated with a civilization that embraces primitives." One by one, representatives stood to announce their withdrawal from various agreements. The Empire's trading position, carefully built over centuries, began to crumble. Tom had been summoned to the hall, standing calmly amid the storm of political chaos. His simple work clothes stood in stark contrast to the elaborate forms around him, but his presence carried its own quiet dignity. "Captain," the Emperor addressed him, "your presence here has caused quite a disturbance." "With respect, Your Majesty," Tom replied, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. "We didn't come here looking to cause trouble. We came because we saw others in need and chose to help." "A primitive response," the Mind Collective sneered. "Advanced civilizations have protocols for such situations." "Protocols?" Mary suddenly spoke up. "That would have left that civilian transport at the mercy of raiders. The humans acted while others calculated the optimal response." The hall erupted in angry murmurs again. Tom caught Mary's eye and gave her a small, encouraging nod. "I'll leave if that's what's needed," he offered quietly to the Emperor. "We're grateful for the repairs, and we don't want to cause problems for your empire." But Mary stepped forward. "No, this isn't about one ship or one captain. This is about what we've become. So focused on advancement that we've forgotten how to live." "The Empire needs allies," Emperor Stone reminded her gently. "We need the right allies," Mary corrected. "What good is knowledge without the wisdom to use it? What good is power without the heart to guide it?" The crystal ambassador's form flared. "If you choose this path, Princess, you choose isolation. No advanced civilization will ally with an empire that embraces primitives." Mary looked around the hall, at the beings of pure energy and living crystal, at the time travelers and the digital entities. Then she looked at Tom, who stood there watching the scene with calm interest, neither intimidated nor arrogant. "Then perhaps," she said clearly, "it's time to redefine what we consider advanced." She turned to her father. "I have a proposal, one that will test all our potential allies, including the humans. Let them prove their worth not by their technology, but by their ability to solve real problems." The hall fell silent. Emperor Stone studied his daughter's determined expression, then looked at the human captain who had unknowingly sparked this diplomatic crisis. "Very well," he said finally. "What do you propose?" Mary smiled, her silver skin glowing with purpose. "A challenge. open to all who wish to prove themselves worthy of alliance with the Empire. But this time, we test more than just technological advancement. The storm of protests began again, but Mary stood firm. In her mind, she was already planning the trials that would show the galaxy what true advancement meant. The Imperial testing ground sprawled across an artificial planetoid, specially constructed for Mary's challenge. Representatives from 30 different civilizations had gathered, their ships forming a glittering array in orbit. The human vessel Star Wanderer looked tiny among them, but its presence had drawn the most attention and criticism. The challenges are simple, Mary announced to the assembled beings. 3 tests, one of innovation, one of adaptation, and one of ethics. Success requires more than just advanced technology. The first challenge began immediately. Each participant faced a damaged ship with limited resources. The Crystal Dominion's representative immediately attempted to recreate their crystal technology, only to find the available materials resisted molecular manipulation. The materials are basic, Mary explained. You must work with what you have, not what you wish you had. Tom and his crew approached their ship differently. They examined the damage, discussed options, and began working with the simple tools provided. While others struggled against the limitations, the humans embraced them, finding creative ways to repair systems with available materials. Primitive methods, the Mind Collective's representative scoffed, their holographic form flickering with frustration as their advanced solutions failed. Effective methods, Mary corrected, as the human ship hummed to life first. The second challenge proved even more revealing. Participants entered a habitat where environmental conditions changed randomly. The advanced races immediately tried to control or predict the changes, using their technology to fight against the uncertainty. Tom's approach was different. You don't always need to control everything, he explained to the watching Mary as his crew quickly adapted their clothing and behavior to each change. Sometimes you just need to be flexible. The Time Weaver's representative actually withdrew from the challenge, unable to cope with a situation they couldn't predict and control. Meanwhile, the humans not only survived but thrived, treating each change as an opportunity to learn. But it was the third challenge that truly separated the participants. Each was presented with a simulation of a colony in crisis. Resources were limited, and difficult choices had to be made about who to save and how to save them. The Crystal Dominion chose the most logical solution, saving those with the most valuable skills. The Mind Collective attempted to digitize the entire population. Other advanced races proposed similarly technical solutions, all focused on preserving what they deemed most important. Tom and his crew took a different approach. They worked with the simulated colonists, organizing them into groups, teaching them survival skills, and ensuring that no one was left behind. Their solution wasn't the most efficient, but it saved the most lives and kept the community intact. Inefficient, the Crystal Ambassador declared. Their method used more resources and took more time. But look at the results, Mary pointed out. The human solution didn't just save lives. It made the colony stronger. They turned a crisis into an opportunity for growth. As the challenges concluded, the advanced races gathered to protest. Their technology had been restricted, their powers limited, their usual solutions rendered ineffective. But Mary stood firm. These challenges weren't about finding the perfect solution. She addressed them all. They were about finding the right solution. The humans succeeded not because they were stronger or more advanced, but because they understood something you've all forgotten. She walked over to where Tom and his crew stood, tired but satisfied. They remembered that progress isn't just about what you can do. It's about why you do it. They showed us that true advancement comes from wisdom, not just knowledge. The Crystal Ambassador's form dimmed. You cannot possibly suggest that these primitives are more advanced than us. No, Mary replied. I'm suggesting that perhaps we've been measuring advancement by the wrong standards. The humans remind us of something we lost in our rush to perfect everything. The value of imperfect solutions, of learning from challenges, of growing through difficulty. She turned to address all the assembled beings. The Empire needs allies who understand this, who remember that the journey matters as much as the destination. The testing grounds fell silent as her words sank in. In the orbit above, the Star Wanderer continued its humble orbit among the grand ships of advanced civilizations, a small but powerful reminder that true worth couldn't be measured by technology alone. The Imperial Palace's grand hall had been transformed. Gone were the ostentatious displays of advanced technology. Instead, artwork from 100 worlds decorated the walls, including several hand-drawn sketches from Earth. The floating throne had been replaced by a simple raised platform where Emperor Stone and Princess Mary stood together. After careful consideration, Mary addressed the assembled representatives. "I have made my decision regarding the future of our alliances." The Crystal Ambassador's form pulsed anxiously. The Mind Collective's representative flickered. Tom stood quietly at the back of the hall, his crew beside him, looking out of place but completely at ease. "I will not be accepting any marriage proposals," Mary announced firmly. "Instead, I am establishing a new position, ambassador to Earth and its colonies." Gasps and murmurs filled the hall. The Time Weaver's delegate actually phased out of reality for a moment in shock. "Furthermore," she continued, "the Empire will be establishing a new method of evaluating potential allies. Technology alone will no longer be our measure of advancement. We will look at how civilizations solve problems, how they treat others, and most importantly, how they continue to grow and learn." Emperor Stone stepped forward. "The Empire has existed for millennia because we adapt. My daughter has shown us a new path forward, one that values wisdom alongside power." Tom moved through the crowd, approaching the platform. "Princess," he said, "Earth would be honored to host you. But are you sure about this? You'd be giving up a lot of comfort." Mary smiled. "I've spent my life surrounded by perfection, Captain. It's time I learned about progress instead." She turned to address the hall again. "The humans have reminded us of something we forgot. Every civilization here started somewhere. We all had our moments of discovery, of trial and error, of learning through failure." She gestured to the artwork on the walls. "Look at what humans create, not because it's perfect, but because it means something. Listen to their music, with all its beautiful imperfections. Read their stories, full of hope and fear and courage." The Crystal Ambassador moved forward. "And what of our existing agreements? Our trade routes? Our technological exchanges? Those who wish to work with us under the new evaluation system are welcome to stay," Emperor Stone declared. "Those who don't," he gestured to the doors, "are free to leave." To everyone's surprise, most stayed. The Crystal Ambassador's form shifted thoughtfully. The Mind Collective's representative began discussing data exchange protocols with a human engineer. Even the Time Weavers showed interest in human historical records. "It won't be easy," Tom warned Mary quietly. "Earth isn't as comfortable as your palace." "Good," Mary replied. "I'm tired of easy. I want to learn, to grow, to understand how humans keep their sense of wonder in a universe full of marvels." Over the next few hours, the hall transformed into something unprecedented, a true cultural exchange. Humans taught advanced races about music and art while receiving lessons in stellar mechanics. The Crystal Dominion discovered they enjoyed Earth cuisine, despite not needing to eat. The Mind Collective found themselves fascinated by human dreams. As the gathering continued, Mary found Tom by his ship. "Ready for your first diplomatic mission, Captain? I'll need a ride to Earth." Tom laughed. "Well, we're not as fancy as your usual transport, but we'll get you there. Though I should warn you, Rose is planning to teach you poker during the journey." "Perfect," Mary said, her silver skin gleaming with excitement. "I want to learn everything. Not just the big things, the small things too. The things that make humans human." As she prepared to board the Star Wanderer, Mary looked back at the palace one last time. The Empire would change because of her decision, but change was good. In choosing to learn from those her people had once considered primitive, she had opened a door to new possibilities. The Star Wanderer lifted off, carrying her toward Earth and a new adventure. Behind them, the Empire began its own journey of rediscovery, learning once again the value of imperfection, the joy of progress, and the wonder of seeing the universe through new eyes. In the end, it wasn't about declining offers or seeing the human ship. It was about remembering that true advancement meant never stopping learning, never losing wonder, and never forgetting where you came from.